How does a major American university end up here?
RIT was really brave to open this campus right after the war. The first campus was a house. It was a private home with an incoming class of about 50 students. RIT believed that the way forward to help develop the country, Kosovo as a whole, was through education of the youth.
What impact is it having not only the current growth, but the future growth in general?
A lot of businesses that you see in Kosovo today, either small or big, most of them are run by our students. They are able to think, not only create opportunities for themselves, but also for others.
See, action.
All right, so we're here at RIT in Kosovo. I think a lot of Americans watching the show have heard of Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York. How does a major American university end up here in Prishtina, Kosovo?
So RIT Kosovo has existed since 2003. So it's been over 20 years that it's operating in Kosovo. It's one of the now 4 campuses that RIT has in the Balkans. RIT was really brave to open this campus right after the war in a country that was still fully rebuilding, still lack of electricity, lack of water. The first campus was a house. It was a private home with an incoming class of about 50 students. So as you may imagine, it was really brave of those students to sign up for an institution that they knew nothing about, an institution that had no track record, and they were expected to pay a tuition that was quite high for that time. It still remains high for Kosovo. So RIT Kosovo exists because of Kosovo's Albanian American diaspora and a few other groups that have believed in this in this type of education and have invested to have this type of education in Kosovo. RIT believed that the way forward to help develop the country, Kosovo as a whole, was through education of the youth. This is what the Albanian American diaspora also believed at this time. And fast forward to where we are now, our numbers and our data really show that it has had a tremendous success for such a small institution, especially in comparison to other universities that operate in the country.
So you were born in Kosovo.
Yes.
Grew up basically in the U.S., right? For the most part, educated in the U.S., was building a distinguished career in academia in the U.S. What drew you back here to come lead at a university back in Kosovo again?
So I was educated in the U.S. fully from high school all the way to my postdoc. I felt that Kosovo needed people to come back to help build the country. At that time, it wasn't so much about my own personal career growth. I felt that this opportunity does not come along often, where you have some of the skills needed to help rebuild your country. It was the timing, it was my age, it was my education, and the opportunities. And I don't mean that in the sense of financial opportunities. I mean the opportunities to have impact.
Right.
I felt that Kosovo at that time needed people who could build bridges, needed brain gain. At the time, and still today, I see an opportunity to create bridges between diaspora and Kosovo, between global opportunities and local hunger. So I've spent the last 16 years of my career heavily working on that. I feel that as an institution, we have reached that mission. So now the idea is to improve the quality and keep up with the global trends. Really, every year is different.
Yeah. So you used the word impact, right?
Yeah.
If you think about RIT Kosovo today, what impact is it having on not only the current growth, but the future growth of Kosovo in general? I mean, how would you kind of assess the impact that RIT is having here?
So we have these discussions internally and with RIT a lot. Every day we ask ourselves this question of what are we doing here? What is our mission here? What is the What is the global or bigger impact that we're trying to have? Who are our students? What happens to them when they graduate? Where do they go? In these discussions, we see that our students are making impact when it comes to critical thinking the most, ethical assessments. So yes, we produce students with ready for work skills. We have programs in computing, we have programs in energy policy, web design. So these are sort of the employment opportunities that you will be hired immediately. But what we see that our students are, where they're excelling, is that they are able to think independently on their own and not only create opportunities for themselves, but also for others. And they don't see barriers. Living in such a small country, every step of the way is a barrier, one way or another. And they look for opportunities in those barriers. A lot of businesses that you see in Kosovo today, either small or big, most of them are run by our students, where they have seen a loophole and they said, we need to work on this. So for some students, they've become bigger businesses. We have students in the government. We have students in financial districts. But I think one larger scope where they excel is the ability to think for themselves and be fully independent in that. Sure, working with groups and things like that, that's part of the education here.
Right.
So I would, to sum it up, I would say that.
So just to go a little bit like a layer deeper with the students, right? What makes those students, I mean, you're obviously you're seeing students from around the world that are coming here. You're had tons of experience with them in the US. What makes students here different?
I find our students really resilient and I find our students really adaptable. So our students, they are very hungry. They're young. Kosovo has the youngest population in the region and maybe in Europe. But I see that our Kosovo youth in general, not just our students, are very resilient. They are eager to learn what's happening in the global market. They are eager to innovate. They are eager to meet other people outside of the borders of Kosovo. So I would say that stands for our students too. Very easily adaptable. I think the resilience also comes from our history, the country's history, and the experience that the families have had intergenerationally. I think it still remains with the youth. They are not fully detached from that.
Right.
And so they have built that grit to survive and be able to work and want to work even under circumstances that are not usually easy.
I mean, that's a really interesting concept, right? Because like that sort of historical legacy kind of builds that resilience, that adaptability, or that, you use the word hunger, right? That hunger or ambition in those students. Is that?
Yes. And Kosovo's history and Kosovo's culture is embedded into our curriculum during 4 years. So we teach leadership and we teach resilience and we teach grit and we teach teamwork. Those are also simultaneously cultural components as well. So for our students, seeing that at home or seeing that in their communities or seeing that in their circle and being able to then come here and apply it for 4 years in different classes with different, very diverse faculty, I think that sort of creates a holistic approach to education where it doesn't matter where they are in the world, they know how to adjust. Okay, so we often talk about how the modern concept of evolution, it has always been being able to adapt, but now we ask students, what is the modern notion of that? What does it mean to adapt in today's world?
Right.
We have students working in Dubai, we have students working in China, we have students working in Europe or US, we have some students working in Africa. So how are you adapting in these completely different global markets, different cultures, and making it work? And I really believe that this holistic approach that we have and the diversity that we try to bring to a small country like Kosovo really exposes students to question and test their own grit and learn that it's a power.
Right.
It's a power. It doesn't necessarily diminish the will or the the opportunity to work. That's a power, and they need to utilize it to move forward.
You know, it's funny because I think the show itself is called Scaling Across Borders, right? And the whole concept of the show is really about how does a company build, how do you scale a company globally really from day one?
Yeah.
And I mean, what it sounds like you're saying is essentially the students here are, they're living that concept because it is such a small country. You have to kind of exist within that global or internationalized bubble instantly.
Yeah. Kosovo is not an individualistic society. We are very much still a collectivistic society. So you still have multifamily homes. That comes with their own challenges and opportunities to learn, to tolerate, to have open discussions, to communicate, essentially to survive, even if it's your own family home. So students learn that from when they are born. What we try to do here is help them make sense of it.
Yeah.
What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses in that? And then try to work with both so they can turn into powerful tools for them in the future.
Do you find that, I mean, I don't know if you see a lot of examples of this, but students, US-based students or, you know, or other Western European countries actually wanting to get that experience, so coming to study here for a period?
Yes.
Is that?
Yes, we have RIT students. Our RIT has a policy on global exchanges between campuses. So students pay in their own home campus and they can study up to a year into any other campus. That's a huge opportunity for us because we are campus with the lowest tuition.
Right.
So if the students will go to RIT Maine or Dubai, they gain a lot.
Right.
But they see this opportunity, RIT Dubai or RIT New York, they see this opportunity not in terms of finances, but in terms of exposure by having our students go there and sort of create this dynamic. So we have a significant number of RIT students who come here to spend the semester and then they like it and they transfer. Not a huge number. I would say maybe a handful from time to time. We now have started having Dubai students come here, but mostly we see this in our summer program. We have a summer program in peace and conflict studies, which is a very unique program. And it's a 5-week program. It focuses on the Kosovo history. And faculty who are teaching there are ex-diplomats who had served in Kosovo for the pre-war, during the war, or who have had huge impact in how Kosovo turned out politically. And there we get majority of the group are American students, mostly from Ivy League schools.
Right.
First week of the program is travel through the genocide sites in the Balkans, from Croatia to Bosnia, Montenegro, here, Albania, and they go with their faculty. They get a tour. And then it's really heavy class work for the next 4 weeks here. It's we have embedded some cultural events for them. But it's a really, when you read the testimonials after, it's such eye-opening opportunity for them because they feel that they were coming to a post-war country, but then they see, I would say they perceive it as a normal life in a post-war country, but they get this opportunity to learn with these faculty that are very experienced in that field. So yeah, we do see that. Maybe not as much as we would want to. But every year there's growth. So
it's always surprising to me. You know, this is probably my 5th or so trip to Kosovo, and it is always surprising to me because it is such a small country. The access that you can have to people, to diplomats who are working in that stage, or to the highest levels of government and things like that. That is something that, as an American, you're not calling Donald Trump to ask a question or something, right? And you're not calling an ambassador somewhere, but that is something really unique about this country because it is so small.
I think for our students, they're used to that. So that's an expectation for students and parents. Because we are an American university and because of the reputation of RIT, I would say we are lucky in that sense that we get to attract amazing faculty who want to teach here. For international students, that's really interesting. Like, how are you going to have the prime minister just sort of for a workshop?
Right. And he just strolls in, it's like,
But we spend a lot of time in creating and nurturing these partnerships with institutions in Kosovo.
Yep. So just to go down a layer deeper on partnerships, how does the university itself partner with the government or partner with businesses to provide that accessibility into the job market or into the government and things like that? Are there sort of formal partnerships or informal partnerships that really exist that make it easier?
There are. And the curriculum itself requires all students, no matter the program that we have here, they have to do a co-op. So the idea behind the co-op is that students spend 2 internships at 400 hours each, paid. It doesn't have to be majorly paid, but they have to be paid during their studies. So if a student is going to school for 4 years, that means that 2 of the summers, at least, out of those 4 years, they have to spend working, supervised work by their employer, but also the office here who monitors. So we do this for every student. And that requires that we have formal partnerships with different institutions. And we have a team who work on that. Now, outside of that, we also have an industry advisory board. That's very important. That is required by 3 of our accreditations that we have in place, but it really helps us shape the curriculum. We work very closely with the industry, especially in computing, to keep up with the trends. They tell us what's going on. The trends here are not always the same in the US. We use the RIT degree, but sometimes the feedback is that's not really applicable here.
Right.
So then we have to refer to the industry advisory board and say, what are we missing? What are our graduates missing? And so they help us form other types of partnerships. Some of the discussions we have had internally on how to scale this up was to create international business partnerships for our students, because we feel that if they had a portfolio with something like that under their belt, it would make it even easier for them to get involved in the global market. They already have the skills. It's building that opportunity for exposure to companies that are a bit larger than what we have in Kosovo. Kosovo now has a good company, especially in computing. Our students are able to get amazing experience. But we have some students that are in management or economics that sometimes they just wish they were exposed to something a little bit larger or outside of Kosovo while they're doing their studies. They do have the opportunity to do that in the summer with a work and travel program, and some of our students do take advantage of that. We help them, RIT helps them if they really want a particular internship at some company, but that's where the scaling would be.
Yeah, it was funny. I actually caught a ride yesterday with it was actually Blundered's sister who just graduated, from here, and she was actually explaining the whole co-op program to me, and just how important that was.
Yeah, we also, I think one of our most important partnerships is with the Kosovo military forces, because the entire incoming class, however big it is, they all get educated here. Right. So that's a huge partnership between us and them. So essentially all military personnel, they get their education here. And it's a combination of them and us funding this partnership for these students.
So everybody in the Kosovo military is coming through and getting an RIT.
Yeah. They're not large incoming classes, so they can be up to 20 students per year. That's what their cohort is, but they're all getting their education here.
Wow.
And then some of them continue. We have had conversations with them about their master's degrees because they have limitations. Some of them go to the U.S. to continue their military education, and they come back, which helps them a lot. This education helps them a lot be able to go to West Point and just continue their studies.
Wow. That's an amazing benefit if you're going into the Kosovo military. I mean, the USS GI Bill, that's Kosovo's equivalent. And
it's not always easy.
Right.
Students that are passionate about the military may not always be passionate about, taking a chemistry class or art.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's part of the process, and the conversations that we've had with them is that they don't really have a plan to discontinue this process because they see that this is really important for development of military.
Yeah.
This basic education, undergraduate education.
So if you think about the skills that your students today, right, when they're coming out of here, you're training them to compete globally, whether that's, working remotely for international companies or working right here in Kosovo.
Yeah.
What are the skills that are most critical for them coming out today, do you think?
I mean, this may sound basic, but they have excellent English speaking and writing skills. And I don't mean that just being able to write in English. I mean being able to create a narrative, a personal narrative in writing, to critique an event, to create a debate, really just to analyze their thoughts in writing. I think that's one of the main skills that they get out of this institution when they graduate. They are very digitally literate.
Yeah.
And I don't say that lightly in the sense of they know how to use a computer, but they are very digitally literate. And then on top of that, they are resilient and adaptable. I think these 4 skills are really what sets our students apart. I don't mean just locally, I mean just in general.
Yep. I think, as a investor myself, as a entrepreneur, and, I think that you hit on critical thinking, right, as being one of the, and I think probably just about any entrepreneur or anybody building companies, whether, in the US or beyond, would tell you, I mean, that is probably the biggest skill that we struggle with, right? And finding, it seems like it's going the wrong direction, right? And trying to find new hires, especially sort of more recent graduates that have those kind of critical thinking skills, right? That are thinking beyond ChatGPT or something, right?
And this part, I want to connect here. This part has been a challenge for us with recruiting.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning, it was difficult to tell the students and the parents that 50% of your education is gen ed. And only 50% is what you actually want to study, because they came here wanting to study CIT or energy policy for 4 years. But 60 of those credits, 50% of the program is gen ed. They have to take moral issues. They have to take critical thinking. They have to take research methods. They have to take a lot of English and writing courses and math and science and arts. And it's like, why am I taking this? It's like high school. But that is the core of our education. That is really what is setting our students apart from the European education system in general, I guess. European system of education does not focus too much on gen ed. It's more professional.
Yep. Are there, you mentioned that being a barrier to recruiting. Are there barriers that you find students face or unique challenges for them coming out of, being educated here in Kosovo? Are there challenges that they face that are unique to them, do you think?
Critical thinking. Critical thinking and comprehension.
Yep.
Outside of the financial struggles that students have, because I have to say, not everybody can have access to this type of education. We say we have wonderful students and our students come out well prepared for the job market. But if we are, we do give a lot of scholarships, significant amount of scholarships. RITK is a non-for-profit organization, so nobody makes money. All the income that we receive goes back to the students.
Right.
But still, to get a scholarship, you have to be really excellent. And so it's not like you can just walk in and be educated here. But once they're here, we do see issues with comprehension of materials. And I don't mean that in the sense of the English language, because when students get admitted, they have to pass all the tests. It's really understanding. Understanding concepts, and that has to do a lot with reading and learning and questioning. Schools in Kosovo still tend to remain teacher focused. So the teacher is teaching and you're absorbing, rather than student centered, where the student can ask questions or the student can sort of debate the professor, or the student can ask an alternative question. That is not happening in high schools. And so when and I'm generalizing. I'm sure some schools have some components. I'm sure some teachers have some components of that. But overall, we have noticed that the reading comprehension of a freshman student is much, much lower than expected. I also saw that there was a report that came out in Kosovo that reading comprehension of a freshman student in college is equivalent to a seventh grade. And so our faculty who teach freshman students have a lot of work to do that first year.
Yep.
So they really have to help the student catch up in writing and thinking and critiquing and analyzing and just putting the whole thing into one piece.
So stepping outside kind of the university itself, right? Because you're in the business of training talent for the next generation of what will be the future of Kosovo, right? Is there a scalable way, do you think, to kind of seamlessly move students, whether they're RIT students or coming out of other universities here in Kosovo or anything like that, into that global workforce? Like, what are there barriers that you see that make that more difficult, and how do you navigate around those things?
Well, I can speak, I think, more about our students and some of the challenges that we've seen with them moving on. We have seen issues with visas. So getting work visas in certain countries, students, when they graduate and they start working in Switzerland, for example, or Germany, they always reach out back, oh, I need this document, I'm being asked to prove this. And sometimes some of these countries don't understand what RITK is and how it's possible that New York awards a degree internationally and that it's legitimate. And we do also have Kosovo accreditation. We went through that process to make this portion for our students easier. So we solved that by accreditation, but we do see challenges with visas, with stays. I would say sometimes students report discrimination. If they are from Kosovo, they are less likely to be hired somewhere else. And then there are students who have businesses here. Or they come back and open businesses here and they say things like, maybe the government should offer tax relief for us that are bringing in this type of outsourced work, and employing a large number of people. But I would still say that, like I mentioned earlier, I think one way to scale up is by exposing young people while they're still at the university. Now, for universities, it takes a lot of human resources to move forward programs like co-ops. Because whoever is working in this office really has to be knowledgeable about the market, really has to know people, really has to be present. But I think if students were exposed to international companies while they're still studying, I think that would be one way to scale them up. So as soon as they graduate, they know what opportunities and obstacles are. I think that.
You mentioned the term before, brain gain, right? And one of the biggest issues you hear here in Kosovo is the inverse, right? It's the brain drain. That because there is such a wealth of talent here, right? And the intellectual capital within the country is so strong. And I think that's one of the things that I'm hoping, this program does, is sort of expose companies to that, to say, there's this world of talent that exists in this small country. How do you encourage or incentivize, or I don't know what the word is, right? But try to keep that talent here to continue to build the future of Kosovo, instead of, migrating, getting a degree here and then migrating out to Germany, Singapore, or Germany, Switzerland, US, whatever.
Also Singapore.
Singapore, right.
We, in the last 5 years, I would say we have had a lot of conversations about this. The mission of RITK is to educate the future leaders of Kosovo. And then we noticed that, okay, but some of these future leaders are working outside of Kosovo. So what does that mean? We have donors, we have people who fund our students' education. And so you fund the education and then the student is going to Singapore. So we were thinking, what does this mean? Are we doing the right thing? Are we still in our mission and vision of the institution? And our students have with their degree, outside of the administrative issues like visas and documents, they have no issues in working anywhere else in the world. It's an American diploma, so obviously you can't stop them. But some of the conversations that took place is that we also don't want them to feel stuck.
Right.
We don't want them to just graduate and work here and then sort of do the knowledge loop.
Right.
Because you don't have any new information coming in if everybody's just graduating and working with each other. So what we have noticed is that although our students, a lot of the time, especially if they're doing a graduate degree abroad, they will remain and work, and somehow they will always bring something back.
Yeah.
Be it their business, be it their knowledge, the connection always remain. I would say that this is largely cultural as well. Diaspora groups that emigrated in the 90s, diaspora groups that emigrated in the 2000s, and now educated youth that are traveling abroad. It is embedded in all that you always give back to your country, no matter, be it financial, be it through employment, be it through your knowledge, you always somehow give back. So to answer your question, how do you keep them in? We don't, but we try to embed in them that social responsibility that they have. In this case, through education and giving back.
It's a really great point, right? Because I think you see a lot of, it would be very tempting, say, through the government of Kosovo, and they haven't done this, but it would be very tempting to say, okay, if you're going to go through a university, you have to stay for X number of years after or something. It would be very tempting to try to pass a law or something, right? And I think what you're saying, which is interesting, is, look, it's okay if they do leave. It's great if they leave and get experience and then bring that experience back here, right? And then start to build based on that experience. And I think, it's a different way of kind of looking at it, and it's a far more open way of looking at it. I think it's an interesting.
I think it would be very damaging to keep the youth in a country that wasn't free.
Right.
So what you're doing,
ironic at the least, right?
Yeah. So you're telling your youth, just stay in, keep staying in.
Yeah.
No, go out, gain experience, learn, expose yourself, meet people, create networks. Our job as an institution is to create that social responsibility and maybe love for their country,
Right.
and the want and the need to give back without forcing them to remain or putting pressure that you're our future, so please don't go anywhere.
Right.
Go, enjoy. I think this rite of passage is common in a lot of cultures.
Yep.
And it's not in this culture, but I think also parents and the communities are slowly learning to let go and see that there are huge benefits.
We're interviewing a number of founders on this show who, you're in I think there's, there's several of them that we're seeing this with, where they were born here, raised for part of their life here, like yourself, right? Went abroad, got great experience, and now bringing that experience back. And I think that's sort of the essence of what you're saying, right? And that's a model that I think the country can certainly follow.
Yes, and I think through our education, we're always discussing what is the tip point that you want to reach as an individual. What is that self-actualization that you want to reach? And going through your studies, you don't really know. You have a lot of ideas, you have a lot of wishes, and then you may get diverted or pushed a certain way or another. But I feel like what I got to do here was really unique. And it just so happened that it was at the right time.
Right.
I think nowadays you still get to do a lot, but they're different.
Yeah.
In my age group, there's maybe a dozen of people who had studied abroad and were back here at that time. And I think the opportunities that were given to us were very unique.
Right.
So
if you're talking to an investor or an entrepreneur that, is thinking about starting to expand their business globally, or at least expand their talent, globally, right? Or an investor who's looking at, potentially investing in Kosovo or investing in companies in Kosovo, what do you tell them?
Well, outside of the fact that Kosovo has a huge group of young people. It's the youngest country. I think 50% of the population is under 25.
Yeah.
They're also exposing themselves to a hungry group of people that are just really eager to get out of the shell and learn.
Yep.
Learn and be part of something that is bigger. A group of people that are resilient. I don't want to say that they are profitable, that this is a group that you would hire because it would be cheap labor.
Right.
Some of them are not, some maybe. But you really get quality in that sense that I think remains in very few countries. They grow up humble in larger families, so they learn to maneuver there. And then move, and Kosovo has a history that has shaped their identities and their grit. So in a sense, I would say you are really looking at a group of people that are willing to do anything to learn and grow and innovate. They're young. They speak English. They write in English. They are digitally literate. So I'm sure there may be things that they need to learn depending on where they're working, who they're working with. But I think they're adaptable. So I think it would be something that they would be able to work with.
Yep. What do you tell the 22-year-old, 23-year-old that is looking to start to, compete globally and looking for kind of access to those opportunities? What do you tell them?
To really expose themselves and really to expose themselves with an open mind. Knowing the culture, I know how restrictive it can be, especially of the male population. Still culturally, the son of the family is expected to kind of keep the roots. So sometimes our male students have to adapt in that sense that, I still have a responsibility towards my family, but I want to have this kind of business. So how do I manage this barrier? How do I do both in a small country such as Kosovo? So, but I would say to really expose themselves, to really read, to meet people, to create networks, and to just learn in the process, to learn what is the game, what goes on, but also to be aware that is really competitive. I think one thing that sometimes our students lack is they forget how big the global market is, and they forget how competitive it is. For every skill that you may have, there may be 1,000 students in India who may be able to do it better.
Or a million.
Or a million. Or students in China who may be better than you at math or something similar. So I think they forget the scale of the world or just the market in general. So exposure and learning and meeting people, I think that would be my one advice.
So you're building a large, you're building a campus of a really large American institution here, right? A university. What are the challenges unique to building that kind of an operation here in Kosovo?
Well, I would say more immediately would be financial. RIT Kosovo is a non-for-profit institution, so all of our finances revolve around that: student tuition, donors, and we have to be very mindful in how we work there. And because the aim is always to have scholarships for students to make the education as affordable as possible. Another issue or challenge I would say is diversity. Kosovo as a country itself is not very diverse. We are starting to attract diversity from the region. We've always had it from the region, but now it's more from abroad. But other challenges come with that. We need human resources to then work with those students, with visas, with stays. We don't have a dorm.
Right.
So their parents naturally worry, where are they sleeping? Is it safe? What if the students is neurodivergent? Then we don't have many offices internally to work with special needs students. So that remains a challenge. The diversity and the entire component that comes with that. And some of the challenges we have faced in the past is just with accreditation. RIT Kosovo currently holds 3 accreditations, one from the Middle States in the U.S., one from ATME in the U.S., and then the Kosovo local accreditation. So Kosovo accreditation operates on a European system, so you continuously have to adapt the coursework and to show how you're meeting those benchmarks.
So you have to meet a European standard as well as a
Yes.
American standard.
We've only done that we're not technically required to.
Yep.
We do it for two reasons. One, to collaborate with the accreditation agency and to show that we operate here. We want to oblige to the regulations of Kosovo. But two, that really helps our students when they graduate, especially if they want to continue with graduate education in Europe or anywhere else outside of the US. If they can prove that the institution is locally accredited, it makes it a lot smoother in the European system. So yes.
Yep. It's great. Love it. Thank you very much.